How's it going, everybody out there? JT here on behalf of the ETH Finance Daily General Discussion, the EV Mavericks program, hosted by the EV Mavericks on Discord. We've got Brett from MegaETH here joining the podcast today. Say hello to the world, my friend. Good to see you and good to have you here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I've been seeing the Mavericks all over my timeline the last like six months or so. Just like more and more progressively, and came to respect the group. So whenever I, started pushing MegaETH harder, like man, there's some communities I want to isolate and make sure I have a conversation with. You guys were one of them, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're super proud, full of our NFTs. Just a real quick backstory on the ETH Finance EV Mavericks. We were all born on Reddit. All of the NFTs that you see, there's 1,324 of them that were produced, and they were airdropped to contributors of ETH Finance Daily General Discussion on Reddit. So this was basically the first and only that I know of retroactively awarded NFT to an already existing community. This wasn't something that people could just purchase and be part of the community. And even with that, we don't really token gate too much with it either. And you'll notice that those PFPs that you see out there on X and Warpcast, anywhere that you see that, these are a lot of really bonded people from the Reddit community in the Ethereum world. And we're just super proud of like the origin story. And, we're just really a very knowledgeable group of people. There's so many builders and thinkers that are actually that held those NFTs, and many of them still do. But if you look out like DC Investor and Anthony Sassano, I think maybe had one. David Hoffman from Bankless had one. I mean, these were people that you see all the time out there on Twitter. We're the OGs from Reddit that a lot of those big brains and personalities came from. And I'm just a moderator on our Ethereum. The ETH Finance community migrated over to our Ethereum. So the basis of this podcast, just to give you some backstory, is it's coming out of our Ethereum, the main subreddit for the Ethereum network. And we're trying to make Ethereum Reddit genuinely excellent, which is merge. So there you go.
Yeah, man, like that's actually, I cut my teeth there way back in the day. Although admittedly, so I got my first bag back in 2017. So when this stuff really started happening, and all the conversation was happening on Reddit, right? Like you're calling it our Ethereum, our finance. I remember going back to it. I still have I subscribed to what was it, VeChain and IOTA and like all of these subreddits that I was deep in. Reading the gospel. So yeah, it's cool to see that stuff's still going on. And I've seen there's been a little bit of a resurgence or trying to bring back glory to like the Reddit conversation, but I haven't participated recently.
That's okay.
And just Ethereum advocacy in general, right? Like this is the Ethereum Foundation doesn't want to fill the role that like the Solana Foundation does in advocating for Ethereum. So in Bitcoin, there's no foundation at all, really, so to speak of. And so everyone kind of like bands together and fills that role. And in Ethereum, not as much, right? So we've been looking at people like Joseph Lubin to do that and kind of spend silence for a few years, right?
Yeah, so, well, now with the Etherealized group, right? Like they're starting to see there's going to be some other advocates that are taking that on, hopefully, in a more professional.
The last 6 months, we've seen people have really woken up to this problem, and we've been trying to rejuvenate like subreddit for that purpose of advocacy, bringing people, answering questions.
Yeah, start to make some noise again. Get back to getting loud instead of always just being, trying. I don't know. It was just there for a while. It was like resting on our laurels a bit. And it's like, no, actually, competition could come in and scoot some of this interest away from you, and it did.
Yeah, there's just some kind of elitism over like our tech is better and so therefore we will win, right? And we had plenty of people that would talk about the tech, right? And not a lot of people that would help you get started on the chain, right? So like once you just like withdraw your ETH from the exchange, what do? Go on crypto Twitter and find like, how do you discover quality applications and not scams, right? the signal that we had on social media around the time of like 2023, 2024, it really devolved into if you showed up and you were interested in learning about blockchains, you weren't going to walk away with a favorable impression of Ethereum, right? So, we're trying to rejuvenate that signal, and
That's right.
Ethereum is certainly part of that. The Ethereum subreddit is certainly part of that. I've seen some other groups like the Ether Guild as part of that, right? And it just seems like we've woken up to there's been a problem for a couple of years, and now let's try and work together as a community to take this seriously and fix it.
Let's go for it. Well, today we are joined by Brad from MegaETH. They've got quite the project going on. I know a little bit about it, and I'm assuming a lot of people know a little bit about it. But I did see that you guys had a pretty big tweet that came out today. I'm looking on this monitor here. It says, introducing the MegaETH public testnet. Now, Brad, I'm going to lay this podcast into your hands. Do you want to talk first about this, or do you want to talk first about what MegaETH is? Because I kind of always like to hear the origin story. I know you said you're from the 2017 ICO bubble era, which was a pretty wild time to get in, right? I feel like we've had these epochs of history. So do you want to do the origin story, or do you want to jump straight into what people can do right now with this testnet? It's up to you. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of origin. Yeah, just so we'll lay some foundation. We can keep it short and sweet because I know people probably want to talk about what they can do today. So we'll start with the origin stuff.
Okay, go for it. What was the inspiration for MegaETH?
Yeah, actually, so context for me joining the team is I actually joined in November of this past year, right? So I'm not part of the original founding team. It's the project has been on the business side, been in earnest since the beginning of last year. And then, so it's about a year now, a little over a year that it's been on the business side, but the actual tech side comes from two people, mainly one, Yilong Li, who is basically, he's just like, cut his teeth fucking up a lot of data centers with like, I'm going to make a lot of data go very fast throughout all of these computers in this area, right? Like that was his thing. He's a Stanford PhD, low latency systems, right? Like this guy's, used to operating in the nanosecond, microsecond scale, right?
Wow.
And so like that was his profession. He actually, so he's not from crypto, didn't really understand a lot of stuff. He stumbled across a paper and got fascinated with like how people were trying to scale the Ethereum virtual machine. And again, this was like about 3 years ago. He saw this stuff and he's like, guys, you guys are kind of fucking up. Like how you're doing this. He's like, I could crush this, right? So what he did was, and there's a couple of YouTube videos out there, I can try to get some for people if they like listening to the technical stuff, where he basically just like broke down over the course of like an hour. He's like, look, we have this ethos of measure then build. So he's like, here's the Ethereum virtual machine. He's like, you guys aren't maximizing what can actually be done with this. He's like, so I'm breaking down every single thing, like where all the bottlenecks are, whether it's a specific opcode, whether it's like, parallelization, like all this stuff. He's like, how do I squeeze the most juice out of this? He measured it all, found the bottlenecks and said like, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle this problem. Did a POC over 6 months. And then eventually he's like, okay, I want to bring this thing to market. Ended up pairing up with someone who he met in his academic journey, which is Lei Yang, who's the other co-founder, the technical co-founder. And he is MIT graduate in consensus systems. He actually worked with Ethereum Foundation previously, co-wrote a paper with Sriram from EigenLayer on data availability. So like he's very, very Web3, right? His whole study was in blockchain tech. And these two kind of came together and formed like a little wonder twin situation of like, all right, I can juice the EVM. The other guy's like, okay, cool. I can actually develop the blockchain stuff. I can deal with, posting state roots back down to Ethereum, right? Making sure like our construction is valid, working on data availability with the EigenLayer guys. So those two in tandem have been working on this for a few years now. And again, this last 6 months, they sit over the top of like 20 something engineers over in Shenzhen, and like they're basically just like crushing it. And then there's the business side that has come out of that, which is Bing. You might see her on Twitter, Hot Pot DAO. She is former consensus, friends with Vitalik. You saw the raise that we actually did. Vitalik and a few others are there. So embedded in this ecosystem. And then she started building out the business team to actually develop the go-to-market strategy. And then I ended up getting involved as just like someone that commands some voice in Twitter to like continue to push the narrative and work as like a marketing lead for them. So that's been the origin. It was just basically they saw the landscape, they thought it was inefficient. They had some expertise that they could actually deploy in this space, and they saw that a lot of the stuff that was being deployed was a little redundant. So they're doing their best to win over that.
So this strikes me. This was they've been friends through university, and then they just really started getting to work together on this over the last year, and they've already produced this entire project in months.
So the project is so about 3 years from proof of concept to today. So it was like, it was 6 months of them just like, okay, we're doing an internal thing just by ourselves. It's literally just Elong building it out with a little bit of lay. Over 6 months, they got some initial capital with that. Then they started scaling up the team. Within the last year is when it's been the hyperdrive stuff. That's when the business team came on. That's when tens of other analysts and researchers, engineers have been brought onto the team that they can sit over the top of. So since then is when it's been really accelerating and going from a little bit more than a proof of concept into like what you're seeing today, and now people can test on testnet.
And Brad, you came on. By the way, this is Brad from MegaETH. If you're out there watching this on Twitch or Twitter, on the two different X channels, we got at ProDJ KC at EV Mavericks. This is Brad from MegaETH, and you said, Brad, that you came on in November of last year, correct? So just a few months ago. Okay, so and your role is public relations, essentially community lead.
Yeah, we're a pretty scrappy team. So like the business side tactics, like as we scaled up, you've probably seen in the ecosystem. This is why a lot of people are enthusiastic about what we've done. Is over the last we mentioned the ICO era, like we had some epochs that we've all lived through, whether it's NFTs, whatever. Over the years, a lot of these infrastructure projects have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to come to market, right? Which necessitates huge teams and just crazy marketing budget, all this stuff. Our project specifically saw a lot of that over the last few years and has leaned into the trying to return to the days of glory, right? Where it was like, okay, let's try to make sure value capture is not totally taken in public markets after 6 raises from 45 companies, or maybe even just like 2 or 3 companies, right? And then it's down only once we hit the market.
Right.
So that the initiative early on, before I even joined, again, beginning of last year, was that like, okay, we're going to go through as many channels as we can to make sure that people who are crypto native have access to get our ability to get skin in the game. So we did an echo round, raised about $10 million. They did a small raise from VCs, Joe Lubin, Vitalik, Dragonfly were all in that. That was like $20 million total. That's actually when I noticed the project, that they announced that in July. I wrote about it. I come from I was just existing on Twitter as a content guy, whatever. And I wrote about MegaETH because I saw what they were doing, and it resonated with me as like, this is a team that is going kind of against the counter trend, right? They're saying everyone is trying to decentralize everything. Everyone's trying like whatever. And like, maybe we over indexed on some of this to the detriment of user experience, performance, whatever, right? We, in the beginning of the show, alluded to like, Ethereum just thought like, okay, people will come. And then you have people like Solana who stepped in and they're like, they put their floor to the ground and said like, all right, we're just going to accelerate, right? They're making some little opinionated decisions. They're going to push performance. They're going to try and scale to L1, all this stuff. In seeing all of that stuff, the Ethereum ecosystem now has ended up with some constructions that are not quite as performant as a Solana, but like also not as like value accretive as they would have liked because of the L2 constructions. But like it does handle load better, like broadly across the ecosystem, because you can have more machines doing more stuff. So like it's directionally correct, but the value accrual conversation is there. Anyways, these guys came along and I read the white paper and I saw that like, okay, they're not trying to maximally decentralize everything. They're like, okay, we're going to make an opinionated choice on like, we can leverage the roadmap that Ethereum has taken, right? By having these modular components, by really leaning into what like Ethereum provides, is the world class at providing, right? It's real time, or not real time, it's liveness, right? It never goes down. It's credibly neutral. It's censorship resistant, like all of these properties that Ethereum has. We can leverage those things to the max of our ability by becoming an L2, and then not even try to like take over consensus from Ethereum. Ethereum is the best consensus. It has the best. It's like it does the best thing. So we give that to them and say we will then take on the execution environment. We will then take on providing to users the best experience, and then that's what this design has ultimately led to. And Yeah, again, people can see it a little bit today. But seeing that, I reached out to the team and ended up joining as like I guess it'd be like a CMO role these days, just like marketing.
Congratulations. It made quite
few questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Logri the Bard.
Yeah, so blockchains provide a few different things now, right? There's data availability, there's sequencing, there's as you said, consensus, there's settlement, there's execution. You're not trying to be a based rollup. You're not trying to be a native rollup. Were you an Optimium? Were you a
Yeah, Validium and Optimium are the two constructions, and I don't know how educated you're. I know you guys are pretty smart on Twitter, so I expect you guys to like know how to do this stuff or what the technical terms are. So like Optimium and Validium are just based on the proofs that you generate, right, as an L2. But they both make sure that you reference alt DA, right? So Ethereum has a blob space for blobs, and then it has this regular call data that you do for proofs. And the two things, if you post both of those two things as a L2, then you're defined as a rollup, right? That's your bases, that's your arbitrums, that's whatever. We are at present an Optimium because we use fraud proofs, which would be optimistic proofs, as an L2 that leverages alt DA, which would be eigenDA.
Okay. I mean, the message I've consistently heard from MegaETH is it's blazing fast. And while you've been talking, I've been clicking around on the demo links you posted to the chat here. I've minted some.
Do you have testnet ETH? Put your address down in there. I'll send you some ETH too.
No,
if you need some to play
when I
around.
just connected my wallet, I already had some, so I'd been airdropped some, and then I used the testnet faucet, got a little bit more, and then I minted some things over on the. I deposited to an AMM with some of the airdrop tokens I had. So you've got some of my ETH in your mega/ETH LP, and I got some testnet tokens on the AMM over there, and I deposit that. Like the chain goes faster than my wallet to hardware wallet interaction, right?
Yep.
Like usually I can click over here and then I wait a couple seconds for a confirmation, and I there's just kind of this back and forth between the browser window, the wallet window, and the hardware wallet that I'm used to this kind of chain. The chain experience is faster than my usual wallet to hardware wallet like loop goes, right? So I don't feel any friction in the slowness of the chain. It is, as you say, ridiculously fast and basically real time. To the point where I would probably be interested in what you could do with programmatic wallets at this point, right? For gaming or other applications that don't need the full security of a base rollup or a native rollup. Well, the other thing I like about MegaETH, in addition to it's blazing fast, is what it does to the Solana brains, right? So I'm used to Ethereum getting kind of like barbelled attack by BTC on one side and Solana on the other, with people bashing each other head. Look, Solana's faster. And then you come along with MegaETH and you say, look, MegaETH is even faster than you. And then suddenly they squirm about like the values of decentralization, and right, they tie themselves in mental like pretzels or mental gymnastics, right, to try and defend Solana's space somewhat in the middle to the right of ETH. It's always a fun point to bring up in conversations with Solana Maxis, saying like, well, if you really value speed, you should go try this MegaETH thing, because it's posting 20,000 TPS today, and it's got even lower fees than Sol, and you pay for it, the gas and ETH, right? And then suddenly they're like, oh, but, I'm like, well, I don't know. MegaETH has never had a downtime.
Well, like, so
never had uptime either. Downtime.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no uptime either. But you're making some great points, and like the nuance that I think is worth, or just maybe the plus one. I mean, I think it's exciting about it is like we achieve more performance because we offload the consensus stuff to Ethereum, but then we also achieve the same censorship resistance. This is in the final construction, right? So we're in testnet. We got to build some of this stuff out. We have to get prod proofs. We have to, eigenDA has to set up the slashable stake for data availability, all this stuff. But the final form that we're pushing forward is a moment where we have all of the performance benefits of a chain that does not have to do all of the consensus overhead, all of these things that an L1 has to do, because Ethereum has like thoughtfully provided all that stuff. That's part of the roadmap. And then we get the benefits of Ethereum's consensus and liveness, right? Which is like the forced inclusion into the L1. So people say like, oh, but you have a big sequencer that's generating all this stuff, and it's therefore centralized. Therefore, it's like, no, bro, because of the way that this stuff is configured, you can actually do a forced inclusion transaction down to mainnet, right? And actually get swap something, so the sequencer can't even censor you. So like the argument that like, oh, you're offloading block building to a sequencer, and then therefore it's not decentralization. It's not
Do you
Web3.
have an article or anything that would walk through the steps of how to do that? Because I've tried to do that for Arbitrum before, where they're like, you can force include in a transaction.
Yeah,
And I got with actual Arbitrum devs, and I said, okay, I've got some asset over in a beefy pool over here. How do
yeah,
I extract that? And it wasn't as simple as, oh, it's in the bridge and I just need to bridge the USDC home. Of course, it's an interest bearing position over on Arbitrum,
yeah,
or it's in
yeah,
tokens that are actually Arbitrum first and therefore can't be bridged, right? Because there's no mainnet it was bridged from. And the forced inclusion of the transaction at that point was they just told me they have no idea how to do that.
yep.
So if you have
I have a
good
great one.
article, let's post
So
that in our chat.
yeah, I'll put it here in chat. So what I'm going to show you is this is actually a product idea I had a year and a half, 2 years ago. And if you remember the Sonium saga, where is it? The Sonium saga, where they were censoring people because of IP, right? People were launching meme coins that were related to IP that Sony had, and they just said like, no, like censor, you can't do it. They're doing it at the RPC level. So Donna at L2 Beat, yeah, he went through and he's like, okay, I just showed you that I forced include. I swapped a censored transaction on mainnet, and I was able to acquire it, even like to get around them. And yep. So when he did that, I was like, I quote to that because this was again a product idea I had a long time ago. I just never actually executed on it. It's like if someone can build an application that allows people to do forced inclusion transactions whenever it's needed most and just take a small fee on it, that's a product, right? Like I can have an app that you just come to, natural language, do whatever, take 0.5%, take 1%, whatever. You're not going to make
that compared to censorship, compared to feeling like you're trapped or 100% loss. The mental security that you have something you can go to, even if you have to pay a fee, absolutely, that's a valid product.
Exactly. And so when I did that, I put that out in the world. I just dropped it in chat. People actually came in like, oh, that's a great idea. I want to do that. And some people actually started working on the products for it. Now, I don't know where the current state is, but I know I had people for a couple of weeks following that saying like, oh, here's a follow up. Like I've created the application. I'll see if I can actually track down the actual thing. But the short answer to your question is like, there's no one size fits all way to actually just like do all of this stuff. But now there are people who are working down the product path of just making a slick UI that allows you to like actually just do that stuff in a natural way.
I think walking through the Sonium saga as you described it, that tweet thread of how he did it, I thought was very educational. Like if everyone could just, if anyone that is really wants to understand L2s and their constructions, you should really go through and at least read through that thread and see the steps they did to like, here's what I had to do to make a proof, and here's what I had to do to submit it to the chain, and what the L1 contract actually is, or where the data availability is that the validators will respect. Like these things are, you don't get into the weeds at that level of detail when we're talking about L2s. We just talk about like security trade-offs and cost trade-offs and speed and like being optimistic. You have a 7-day settlement with ZK, like which version of ZK, and then you get into a whole family of ZK snarks for ZK proofs, and you quickly like like, oh god, I didn't sign up to get a computer science degree. I just wanted to make some money in crypto, right? And then people give up with their head spinning at some point. But really, it is one of the better forms, one of the easiest ways to educate yourself on the construction of an L2 is to go through that Sonium thread, and you'll learn so much more than trying to read a Liberosist, 10 hours of Liberosist blog on the topic much more quickly, because it's practical. It's right in front of you, right? You can kind of see the inputs and outputs in every step through the thread, at least that I read.
Got a question that came in off of YouTube, I believe. JS Tears, our haiku expert, he said, Brad, you should apply to speak at ETHCC.
I'm actually thinking about it. So like I just did ETH Denver. I'm the front man for a lot of the stuff. And I was actually at, where was it? Was it one in Bangkok recently? Oh, DevCon.
Yeah, DevCon.
I was on main stage for DevCon talking about Ethereum blobs because I was actually a pretty big blob butter, just because like the incentives I think are a little fucked up. So I was on there with like Sassel and a few other people just talking shop. But I was also at ETH Denver. That was mostly mega stuff, and I'll probably either be at ETH Milan or ETHCC or both. I'll see you guys there.
You caught Sassel in the wild at a conference. That's a pretty rare. That's That's like a major
Yeah,
Pokemon win to get him out there. That's good on you.
I've met him at some barbecues of yours before. It's not that rare.
I was in Denver barbecue, and I did 3 different barbecues while I was in Denver. That's kind of my calling card when I go out there. Is I don't go to the conference. I have the conference come to me. So I smoked 16 pork butts.
Hell yeah, bro! I'm from the Midwest. I need that.
Yeah, I'm in Kansas City area, so it's
I grew up in
always
St.
fun.
Louis.
Yeah, nice.
I used to go over there to tailgate with my brother
At the
watch some
Chiefs
KC
games.
game.
Yeah. That's one hell of an environment, man. You don't even have to be a football fan to have fun at the Chiefs Stadium.
No, not with the moonshine tastes like that. You kidding me?
Oh my
It was
God.
like some cinnamon stuff is like candy.
Yeah, yeah. This year it tasted like eagle piss, I have to be honest. I gotta go. I want to go back to your the tweet that went out today, and this conversation.
Yeah.
I really, when I was first learning about MegaETH, the first thing I thought of is like, oh, these guys are going to make Solana on Ethereum. It's literally like, hey, we can do it too. Because that's what I feel like. Ethereum is like this slow moving glacier that eventually swallows up any other original idea. It's almost like the black rock of blockchains. I don't know if that's going to be a trademark phrase, but they just like it just slowly consumes all the use cases and all the one-off things that anybody out there can do. I did it, but before we get into testnet, just to be clear, so this isn't like, is this like a situation where the hardware, it's obviously centralized, but is there any ability for a normie to participate in securing MegaETH? Okay, that's a good question.
So let's talk about this.
Let's do it.
This one's fun because this one actually goes back towards what we were alluding to earlier with like some of the technical stuff and how the chain feels, right? One, like, there's like the raw speed. Whenever you were talking about that, I put the tweet in there talking about, we airdropped 190,000 wallets. So like some of these guys in chat are like, oh, hey, we already have ETH in our wallet and we can play around. And it's because we were able to do that. It took us 15 seconds to execute that, right? So, and there we have the video right there so people can actually just see us actually running the thing. So like one is just like the raw capacity, but like raw capacity is kind of becoming a table stakes these days, right? You have like Hyperliquid's coming out, Base is trying to juice their stuff, Solana's at a couple thousand TPS. Like everyone's like starting to push it pretty far. So like there's 2 other verticals that we capture, and we capture them because we are an L2, which I think is the powerful thing, right? Like you literally cannot do this elsewhere, which is again a reason why I ended up like really buying into the idea. One of them is what you're referring to, how to participate in the network. So we have this concept of like it's not totally new, right? If you understand the specs that make up all of the ecosystem, whether it's full nodes, validators, whatever, the specs are actually a little different, right? So it's heterogeneous. There's like a few different specs that can exist in the world. With us specifically, so we have this one giant machine that is actually the block producer, right? That's a sequencer. It will be run initially by us, one entity. We will eventually open it up to more, but we will do it without introducing consensus, right? So that's to say that whenever a block is being built, it won't be built and agreed upon by 15 of these giant machines. It'll be built by a single machine, and then at some point that machine will rotate out and a new one will rotate in, right? And any of those machines can be run by multiple entities. So they won't all be MegaETH machines. It'll be us and the numbers haven't been settled, but multiple entities, right? And it'll just be a rotating leader that comes in and does stuff. And because we don't introduce consensus into that process, it means that we don't have to deal with the lag time of coming to consensus, right? That's why our block times are shrunk to 10 milliseconds right now. That's why whenever he was mentioning his hardware wallet feels instantaneous, we call it real time. It's because we don't have to worry about someone else agreeing on something, right? We don't have to worry about all these nodes coming to agreement. It typically materializes in the form of EVM and block times, right? So that's why our Ethereum's block times are 12 seconds, because they project it'll take about 12 seconds for the network to agree on a block to then propose the block to then move on to the next thing. Since we will never have to have this agreement, we're basically trying to eliminate that time. It's at 10 milliseconds now, trying to drive it down to 1 millisecond, right? So the entire latency that you experience between you submitting a transaction and it coming back to you and it being like on this committed to state and then propagated out throughout the network is basically just like distance between you and the machine. So like that's the goal, right? We want to make it instant. Now the second part of that is like, okay, so we have this big machine producing these blocks. It's heavy specs, right? So we literally have all of our state in RAM. So it's a massive machine. We have I think it's 100 terabytes storage. Like it's a fatty, right? Obviously, we can't have like all the full nodes in the ecosystem that at that spec, right? They can't keep up with this machine because it's producing things so quickly. So what we did, we will have full nodes if, like it's actually just below a validator, our Solana validator level. We'll have full nodes if you want to participate that way. But we have two other unique roles that work in conjunction that allow the entirety of the network to keep up. And the way that it's designed is, right, so we have the big machine that's creating the blocks, and they're doing it very fast. We're in 10 millisecond blocks. They're basically streaming these fucking things. We instead of sending all of the transactions to what would be a full node, which we are still doing, but this is a separate node, it's called a replica node. We just send the state diffs for every single block, right? So instead of saying, hey, say you and I transfer an ETH back and forth 5 times, but the balances never change at the end of that, right? It's just me back, forth. Instead of having to send all of those transactions and have it be re-executed to these replica nodes, we just say, hey, nothing changed. Hey, nothing changed. Hey, nothing changed, right? That's much easier to process than having to re-execute all 5 transactions or 50 transactions to like come to that conclusion. Now, when you do that, what you introduce, it's trust assumptions, right? Now, okay, you're trusting the sequencers not. So to mitigate that, what we're doing is we take these blocks, these individual blocks, and we shoot them into, it's called a prover network. And it's just a bunch of very, very, very tiny machines, literally lower hardware specs than even Ethereum nodes, right? It's very small. And we send the block to them, and then they validate the individual blocks. Now they don't need all blocks continuously. Each individual machine can, in isolation, test the block and see if it is a valid block. And in aggregate, all of these machines, it's called it's similar to data availability sampling that Celestia does. They sample all the blocks that we're producing, and they send proofs over to the prover nodes. The prover nodes are not, sorry. They generate the proofs. They send the proofs over to the replica nodes, the things that were previously just receiving the state diffs. And so the machines that are still very low would receive the state diffs and say, okay, nothing changed. And then they would receive the proofs from the prover network and say, hey, he's not lying. Hey, he's not lying. So now in aggregate, this like little triangle of machines all working together allows for the entire network to keep up at a very low cost. And the prover network and these replica nodes and the full nodes will all be permissionless whenever we hit mainnet properly and are properly mature. So people can participate in that way. And yeah, participate in the network, validate the network, prove that we're not lying, prove that the sequencer's not lying, because it won't always be our sequencer. And in doing so, this is the other unlock. So like what that does outside of just allowing the network to keep up with us, like the network being the applications in the ecosystem, what that does is now you don't have a single machine that has to have the compute power to keep up with the sequencer. What does that mean in blockchain terms is compute in on-chain terms is gas, right? Like the gas limit that you're setting on Ethereum main, 30 million gas, 60 million upper bound, that is there to basically promise, like agree with all of the hardware in the ecosystem that you will never need a CPU above this percentage or this performance to keep up with us. But because we are distributing that compute power across a bunch of prover nodes as opposed to like a single machine that has to rerun all the transactions, it means that we can juice our gas limits on the chain because the bottleneck is now shifted from gas, which is compute, to storage because we just have to worry about state growth. And again, what that translates to is that you have no more gas limits, right? Our 1 second block times for the EVM blocks or 10 millisecond for the mini blocks is 2 gigagas, right? Like that's 60x what base is today. And that's just like what we already have today. Like we just kind of set an arbitrary number. We can basically eliminate it, like practically. Like you have to have a limit, but we can practically eliminate it. That means like contract sizes, which are limited to 24 kilobytes. There's no reason we can't run that to 500 kilobytes at like a full meg, right? Like contract sizes, the complexity that you can put on chain as a developer is now gone, right? Like you can basically gone. Same thing with transaction sizes. So like anytime people have come to try to build stuff on chain, they have limited themselves or had to limit themselves with like gas golfing and trying to like reduce the contract sizes because there are these limits that were imposed because of the compute that the network can handle. But because of this construction that is permissionless for everyone to participate in, we basically eliminate that. So we're very fast, very responsive, but we're also without compute limits, which is gas limits on the chain, which is, I don't know, kind of fucking crazy. And yeah, there's more to that, but I want to pause there because it's a lot of information.
Logri, do you have any questions? I think he's
no, not specifically. I thought that was a great explainer.
It's a great explanation. It just
like you basically said, here's why the bottleneck exists. Here's like what here is what we did about that to specifically address that bottleneck, and now here's the new bottleneck, and here's how we can scale that. And I look forward to seeing what types of applications people think this security model is fit for. Right? I think like all the DeFi gaming really comes to mind. If you want to trade your Counter-Strike skins or whatever, like this makes a lot of sense to me. Have a small wallet basically in the application. Things like MegaETH that currently they have like, sub penny cost because the blob costs are so low right now. But there was a while there where it would be 2 to 3 cents for some of the transactions, and that starts to add up really quick, right?
Yep.
You're losing like 10% of your game asset value just in interacting with it, and that's a deterrent to people to play, right? So I think that's very cool. I'd like to see some of the, I guess, evolution type of stuff. Like there was a particular cat game that brought down the Ethereum network basically in 2018, right?
I think we all remember that one.
Those types of evolution things where people can kind of breed their NFTs or have NFTs that have a state to them, like a Tamagotchi or something. That I think these things don't need the full security assumption of the Ethereum mainnet. And if the main validator for MegaETH goes down, it's not like they just lost their bank account, right? The game might be inaccessible to them for a day, and if they really need to get their asset off, they might be able to force include a transaction or to swap it for something, then bridge the ETH back home. But yeah, this is a great example of our infrastructure as a ecosystem has come so far in the last 4 years, right? And the applications need to catch up to that.
Yep. Yeah. The hope is we can just, like you mentioned, like smart wallets a little bit earlier. Like the dream is that this, like the blockchain can actually recede to the back end, right? Like you just don't know it's there. It's just like a normal thing. And you just interact with your app because you enjoy your app. And maybe it has some blockchain components, but it's imperceptible. And then, as you said, like if you come to a point where like, oh, you need your money back or you get to do whatever, then you maybe do a special procedure to force and get out and go return to Ethereum mainnet, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So are we going to be trading tokenized securities on this chain? I don't know, but
yeah, right.
But I could definitely see right now a lot of people around the world are using either Tron for stablecoins, which I don't know. Tron must have done some good went there, and I don't see the appeal. But okay, they have the numbers to back it up, so congratulations. Or much worse than that, they're using Binance account-to-account transfers. So if you deposit from on Binance to someone that's on Binance, it's a zero cost fee, right? I think this is infinitely better than that, right? From a decentralization perspective, because you've gone from not trusting your government to now trusting a private corporation with, let's just say, not an unblemished record, right? And in so doing, congratulations, you got access to US dollars and you got zero fees, but you could just lose all of your access to your funds tomorrow. It's not really a blockchain at that point, right? It just was a clever way of getting access to a US dollar if you're in Venezuela or something. I'd like to see a lot of that type of activity of just pure, point of sale, $10 transfers, right? Not people's life savings. Go to something like this. Pay for food trucks and something like this, right? It's the type of stuff we were using in the Gnosis chain for until recently, where you had like gas denominated USD. Well, we can add account abstraction on top of this, and we can basically get free payments and through some type of you use our smart wallet, and we're gonna somehow monetize that, and then we're gonna use the money from that to pay for all the transactions because they're basically free over here anyway, right? You could get people onboarded for free products, because people love free products, right? You can get any way that you can monetize the wallet at that point. You could bring people onto MegaETH for a free custodial wallet experience, right? That is infinitely better than what I see happening with stablecoin adoption today on places like Tron or on places like Binance account transfers.
You know what? What strikes me when you're talking about Logri, when you were talking about, are you going to do your securities, Wall Street type stuff or whatever on this? No. You know what this screams out to me is low level AI agent to AI agent interaction. So even just all kinds of stuff like Logri, to your point, like loyalty points and the back end for these companies to keep track of all that data for just loyalty points every time they, I don't know, buy a sandwich from a restaurant. I don't even know what it would cost. The difference.
Loyalty points are one of those things that technically you can sell your airline points. Like, this is achievable at a company level.
Okay.
You have to get on the phone with the representative and identify the rewards.
Oh, interesting.
Transfer it to, and there's not any type of liquid market for this. It's an utterly crap experience, and you usually will eat like a 20% slippage loss through whatever markets exist for this. But it's possible to trade loyalty points, but it's clearly a financial asset that doesn't have modern financial tools applied to it, right? And why couldn't we, as to your point, right? Why couldn't we take your Starbucks reward stars and put them on MegaETH? Why couldn't we take your airline miles and put them on MegaETH so that you have, even if you can't necessarily redeem the point in a permissionless way, you can still access it and apply financial tools to it, like lend it to someone, or you could trade it for a different airline mile. Like, if you have points in multiple different airlines, you want to consolidate to one airline. Like, these things would just be a better experience if we had this type of, I'm not saying it needs to be, I need someone to have access to a private key, even like in a full custodial way, and have someone understand cryptography. As Brett was saying, you want to kind of disappear into the background, but the ability to withdraw to that type of system when it matters forces everyone to be honest, right? So if 99% of people never interact with the private key, but the banks know that anyone who wants to can withdraw to a blockchain, if things start to get, let's say, the Trump administration starts to reach into people's bank accounts and pull back all the Social Security they've granted them or Medicaid benefits they've granted them in the last year because they say, look, we can't take that cost anymore and we're broke, right? Well, knowing that people could withdraw to a chain forces everything to be much more honest, right? And I would like to see some used for that type of thing.
They just took Tornado Cash off the OFAC, so if they want privacy, I think there's some anonymity again. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's breaking news today. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but the Tornado Cash is off the OFAC.
But funnily enough, the developers are still have legal proceedings against them, right? They're still accused of felonies, and they're trying to throw them in jail forever, even though it's off the sanctions list.
We'll see if that happens. Brett, I want to be mindful of your time. We're 45 minutes in. Are you good, or do you need a scoot?
Yeah, man, we're chill. We launched stuff this morning, so I'm already DJing some GTE on testnet. So
let's do it.
Yeah, I'll put this out there. So Austin created a doot token.
Austin ST on in chat.
Yeah, he's created a doot token. There's a link on there. Anyone that's watching wants to go and fetch the link, you can go and buy some doot token. I'm looking for how to LP it. It's not appearing in the list of tokens for the markets as far as I see. I think there's probably some indexing latency or something going on with the exchange. But we did create a doot token for the community for anyone that wants to meme coin that on a test net where it actually doesn't matter.
Hell yeah.
Sorry, I'm logging into my Lattice over here.
I just, get people to try the chain, right? Like, so if you're from this community and you want to own some doot token as part of our local meme coin where there's no money at stake, the points are made up and nothing matters, then come on in. Water's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, let me find it. The link was in chat, right? I remember.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there,
I'll grab it from above and post it at the bottom of the chat. Hold on.
put it in the Doots podcast thread above the public stage on Discord, and it'll show up on the live stream.
It's at the bottom of the chat now. Where were you saying I need to put it?
Okay, put it in the Doots podcast
All right.
channel right above public. Yep, there we go. There it is.
I'm a proud Dudes owner.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Welcome to our main coin.
All right, let's do this.
I just love playing with stuff like this.
How cool. Let me log into.
And let me know if you need some testnet. Oh, there we go. Nice.
I've got jtnickel.eth. jtnicchol.eth. I don't know if that is the way to do
I don't know
this.
if that's going to map across. Well, I guess the address would be the same. So yeah.
Yeah, the address will. Google's got my back. It'll resolve.
Yep.
Google's got my back. That was like kind of a quiet thing that got built out. Is that integration?
Yeah, I mean, you can just Google for any NS on Google and it'll resolve the address for you. It's easy enough.
All right, so let me see.
All right, coming your way.
Cool.
It's in your pocket.
Trying to fire up a camera here.
You're gonna demo it?
He's trying to show his lattice, I think. But
Yeah, keep talking, Logri. It's a podcast. Don't let the dead air kill us.
yeah, well, I also don't want to say like, oh, I've run into some bugs in the test net. Like I'll DM him those later. But
I mean, no, tell me that stuff too. We are really leaning into this build in public thing, right?
I've had multiple transaction failures related to something where the UI is not really keeping track of what's going on, right? So like on the
and this is on GTE?
Huh?
This is on GTE, the site?
Yeah, so there's two sites. One is an AMM, one is the DEX. So
Yep.
GTE is the DEX. But on GTE, we're not finding our Doots LP that we've created. So we minted the token. You just bought some off of that link. But if I go to search for Doots in the market list and go to try and LP for it, I can't find the market in order to LP for it. I don't know.
Okay, so then let's see. We need to create.
Being slow.
I think we need to create a pool. Let me see. Now that I'm a Doots.
The transactions that failed, but try.
Okay. So let me see. And actually, I'm not even seeing my Doot token in my assets to choose. I wonder if their indexer's getting beat up.
Well, it's not going to be that the chain is slow. It's that the index that the site is using is out of date, right?
Right. Yeah. And they were running into issues with like their image hosting stuff was starting to blow up, like just like for people creating tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So like the stuff's cracking a little bit.
And then when I go to look at the transaction failure, let's just say the block explorer you're using is not as polished as Etherscan, right?
No, yeah, that's actually a community one. You want to hear a story? Like this is part of the game of like spinning this stuff up. So like OKX came to us, and they're like, okay, we want to spin up a custom explorer for you, whatever. And they couldn't keep up. Like frankly, we're running into a lot of issues where like the chain is so performant that it's breaking a lot of the infrastructure around us. So we need like
transactions, but that doesn't mean that all the transactions are being indexed at that speed.
Right. So like one is visualizing that stuff. One is so like that. What you're seeing there is like doesn't even have an archival node. It's just a current state iteration of the chain where they make some calls and do it based from an RPC. But like OKX is trying to like they're capped at like I think it was like 10,000 TPS is the most that they can handle. But like even on our airdrop, we did like 12K. So like that kind of fucked it up for a little bit. So we're having to like get dedicated builders work with us so that we can actually build out this shit in a high performant environment. And it's been kind of annoying.
I have at least one of my prior jobs. I did streaming for Twitter fire hoses for analysis. So I am familiar with what you mean. Milliseconds count, right? And
yeah.
Something has a 1 in a billion chance. It happens every day.
All right. I'm gonna buy some more Doot.
Continue with the wallet. Connect. Add MegaETH testnet. Approve. Confirm. Now it's gonna go to my lattice. There it is.
Oh, nice. Yeah, cool little setup here, huh?
All right, there's that. Yeah, and you can actually do custom address labels on these things. They're pretty neat. Not a sponsor. Okay, so that's done. Now,
Yeah.
now what am I doing? I'm buying. Okay, I got.
Yeah,
Awesome,
it's,
ETH. Yeah. So you're about to blow up our poor LP because you got way more ETH than I had. Yeah, there you go. Let's do that.
Let's do that. So
Buy some dude.
I hit some buy on the
He's
dude,
got 10x more ETH.
and I hit go.
And it's done
Jesus,
already.
it's already
Yeah.
there.
Just a second hit approve. It's basically done. There's no delay.
So you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but that it shows you the contract address,
Yeah,
and then
that's
it
sick.
shows you the approve operator. So like if you put custom labels on that, you could change the name. That way it helps prevent man-in-the-middle attacks on a compromised browser.
yeah. Yeah, so that'd be like the shit that happened to Bybit, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, and it looks like there's another transaction request here.
Well, one's going to be one approve. I don't know.
Okay, here we go. So the signer says jtnickel.eth. That's the custom address label.
One complaint I have is the message sent over here isn't exactly scrutable, right? There's nothing I
Yeah,
can
it's
do.
all sucks.
Whereas
Yeah,
on
not
other chains
human
I've seen,
interpretable.
it is better.
Yeah. And that's like the two-part thing that like one is just like, yeah, what you're referring to is just like the human readable stuff. Finding wallet partners and stuff has been fun. MetaMask, since we used to work at Consensus, that's why we have the day one support. But even that, like, we want to make sure that that is human readable. And then the second thing is, I know you guys are aware of Pectra coming with 7702. We actually already have 7702 live on our chain, but the wallet providers don't actually support it. So at least not yet. They're like targeting Pectra and then maybe a little beyond that. So we're trying to work with some wallets that are a little forward with it. So that we can actually give people the experience of what 7702 will be, and that's just smart accounts on the back end, but still use your EOA. So we're excited to try to like eliminate the approve swap flow for people ASAP.
Nice,
wonderful.
So Austin ST, do you want to? Austin, I don't know if you wanted to jump on stage or not. We can get you up here if you wanted to ask any questions direct. But yeah, Austin made this thing. I'll invite you to speak, but he may not be able to. He's like an ultra-thon. I always joke that the dude's running more than he is sitting down. He's like an ultra marathon runner.
Hell yeah.
He's legit. Okay. All right. Is there anything else we want to cover before we start going into the second half of the show? Anything about testnet? I mean, we kind of demonstrated it. You can go to MegaETH.com. I remember what I wanted to ask. Is the career path. So I don't know if this is totally up to date. I'll switch monitors here. Are you still looking for executive admin assistant, full stack engineer, senior product engineer? I mean, there's jobs, folks, if you're looking for them. Are there any job listings here that are currently not listed that you guys are also looking for?
So this leads into a two-part thing. Cool. One is that, like, we talked about how like chain's cool, it's like fast, whatever, you guys are experiencing it. It's nice to be able to let people do that. The second thing is like the chain's worthless if no one's actually using the fucking thing, right? So one of the initiatives early on for us to make sure that we found some founders that we wanted to bet on, right? Continue our opinionated effort to like find people, bet on them, really like lean into the human element of this stuff. And what you're seeing there, so like there's a four-ish apps and the different logos, the red one, GTE, red one's Noise, Pump Party, Hop. These are, so we have the ecosystem that we're building up. We have two general tracks. One is our dedicated accelerator, which is what those teams are a part of, right? So we have like 18 teams today that have been co-building amongst each other with us for about a year, actually. So like GTE is this is actually a team that came from Solana. They were over there and they saw we're deep in the woods. Like they were like again, there's like dark forest shit. So like they were building out some infrastructure. They were seeing what was going on in the MEV world, and they're like, this is not sustainable. If like your chain is not fast enough to actually do the first in, first out, like ordering, then like you enter in all of this malicious stuff that is frankly really extractive, and like, there's just no way around it. Like, and then whenever they saw what Yilong was doing, they came on like, all right, we can build this product, but we can build it on Mega. So like this is that crew coming over. But then Noise is another one. It's a product that's trying to build markets around mindshare, which like you guys may be familiar with, like Kaido, right? So like they're trying to create an asset class of like you can long and short like the mindshare of something. So like if instead of like wanting to play with shit coins and like I want to buy AI XBT because I think AI agents are good, it's like I don't want to buy AI XBT. I want to buy the concept of AI agents broadly gaining mindshare, right? Like so it's a little bit more of like an indexed approach to it, but it's without doing indexes across the actual tokens themselves. And the way they do that is by working with other providers in the ecosystem that actually do this sentiment analysis based on like a lot of social metrics, and it's inside and outside the ecosystem. And like again, Kaido is the popular one, right? You go on there, you can see, oh, AI is going crazy. Oh, DeFi is coming back. Oh, all that shit. A specific project is gaining a mindshare. Pengu is doing crazy. All that. So they're trying to build a product around that and actually have market makers that price it and do all this cool stuff. Anyways, that's what you're seeing there. This is our accelerator. Those people that we've been helping, again, co-building with them for 30 days at a time. We actually lived with them before DevCon in Chiang Mai for 30 days. We were in Berlin for 30 days. So it's like building camaraderie amongst all of these people to build these products and try not to do it in isolation, so that our DEX product, which is GTE, is working well with our Perps product, which is Valhalla, which is using Techo, which is our lending protocol, USD, which is our, so like these people don't all have to build everything because they're boys, right? They've lived with each other for 6 months. They like know this shit. So like they're trying to lift up the ecosystem as a whole because it's more interwoven whenever they're no longer having to build every single component for themselves. Like example, GTE has spun up an indexer for some of this stuff, and like they've been giving that out to like some of the lending protocols so that they can actually use stuff. So hardening the ecosystem that way, and then helping them through raising, helping through finding teams, technical co-founders, all that stuff. That's what those listings are. Like they need exposure for full stack engineers, product engineers, backend, whatever. So we list them on our site to make sure that these people that we've bet on and have bet on us are getting the people that they need. So if any of that stuff interests you guys, just reach out, and we'll actually continue to do this cohort thing, or this accelerator. So that was Mega Mafia. The other one's just like an open called Mega Forge. But we'll do continual cohorts of the Mafia accelerator. Like these guys will come, they'll graduate, they'll they'll go do their own thing. They don't need us to handhold them. They're doing their own shit. They're big boys and girls. And then we'll start another batch, and then we'll have the senior classmen, as it were, from these guys that can help them raising, help them do all that stuff. It's a little more scalable because it's not just having to create this classman ethos. So we're trying to get that going. And yeah, that's what's on the site.
Feel free to drop by the daily on our Ethereum and drop any job listings. I mean, we're always interested in trying to help.
Nice.
Our Ethereum is it's the core technical sub. The daily discussion is all things technical, price, memes, ship posts, job listings. You remember how it was back in the old day. We're making it the fun, like party chat of the Ethereum ecosystem. We're trying to build that. So we invite teams to just use that real estate. Obviously shilling is shilling, but if you're coming in there with jobs for people and listings, there's a lot of eyeballs that cruise that sub. I mean, of course, it says there's 3.5 million subscribers. We all know that's BS, but there are a healthy number of people that stop by there simply to lurk. I mean, we all do it. We don't always all say something. So if you see 200 to 500 comments in a day, history has kind of shown us there's usually a 5 to 10x number of lurkers as there are commenters. Yep. So, and that's the technical sub. So certainly might be able to help find these people for you and your associated network.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Yeah, it's always about participating, right? So like you come, you do a little bit of that, but also hang out and do some shit.
Right on. Is there anybody else in chat that has any questions for Brad? And Brad, you're welcome to stay, but the next part of this is I read Reddit, so you don't have to. And we have our own Doot system. The way the name of the podcast is, the Doots, the weekly Doots. So what that is We actually have a point scoring system every single day. We have a user named Tricky Troll for every one of the dailies, picks out the top 10 or so comments from the previous daily and pins them to the current daily.
Oh, nice.
Each one of those people that make the list, I give them a point. Then we have the weekly roundup, which is this podcast, episode 104, where I read the top 10 or so from the week.
You're coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it's crazy. And we have, well, you'll see it when we get into it. So if you want to hang out with us and be a color commentator.
104 is 52 times 2. This is the 2 year.
Well, there's some weeks in there that we kind of missed, though. So it's episode 104. Okay. But to your point, you know what? We ought to go back and find out. I'm thinking we probably only missed about 3 episodes or 4 episodes in 2 years. So I'm thinking, I think you're right. See, it's why we bring the big brains here to take numbers and multiply them by 2.
Some Midwestern boys.
This is fantastic. How many people from Kansas and Missouri does it take to add up to fucking 104? Oh, God, that made my day, dude. Nice job. High five. Wait, this way. Oh, my mom's going to be so proud. I can count more than 100 and divide by 2. All right. This is good. Okay, well, let's jump into it. Hey, if you're tuning in and listening.
I appreciate it, man. I'm actually going to bounce. Okay. I got testing days. I'm going to go check up on what's going on. But I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a pleasure.
Brett, anytime, man. We can get you guys back on for updates, and it's a real pleasure to have you along for the ride today.
So, you know what? And again, reiterating why the original reason to EV Mavericks, right? I saw you guys as a community that actually resonated with. I know, you see a lot of these L2 ecosystems coming up, and they all kind of adopt people. So I was honestly looking at NFT collections that I can make a comfortable home for. I don't know what that even looks like, feels like, whatever. But it was just you know what? EVM Mavericks were literally goosing the EVM to basically its maximum capacity. So feels like there's something there. Anyways, I don't know what that means, but
if you got a half an ETH, you can pick one up. They're sitting out there.
I was looking at him. Yeah, I was looking at him. My buddy ICO Beast. He's that's how I initially met you guys.
Yeah.
The float on the collection's pretty low. So there's 25 or something out of 1,300 that are for sale at any price. It's really there's really not a whole lot that you can go and scoop up. I think there's maybe 5 or something under 1/8. So
that's always the hard part, right? You gotta look good.
Yeah,
it's regardless of the look good. It's it's
no. If I'm buying an NFT, it's got to look good. You kidding me? That's the whole game.
But okay, I don't think that's the whole game for me. It's part of what do you stand for? Who are you standing with, right? And that we try to do things that are education focused. That the constitutional charter for the EV Mavericks is an education focused DAO. So that is a mission that you are aligned with. That's who you're standing with, right? When you buy into that community, some of the taxes on the NFT sale go into the treasury that we use to fund grant initiatives. Rocket School is funded through the EV Maverick DAO. I'm trying to see if we can get an AI built, an anti-FUD bot for ETH that's trained on all the community content that we have. That anyone that has an NFT will be able to invoke for free.
Yep.
And the inference costs for that will get paid out of the EV Maverick treasury and maybe refilled with some public good funding if we show some impact on it. But
nice. Would you have to make sure that someone's not lying with their PFP, right? Because I can right click save, so you have some kind of validation.
Blockchain
asset. Exactly. You'd have to have some type of way of signing a message from the address that you're about to whatever do, right? We'll figure it out. But assuming we can tie it to that and it doesn't get DDoSed, then anyone that's an EV Maverick will be able to invoke that bot for free. And the inference costs will come out of the EV Maverick treasury to start with, and then maybe we'll get some Gitcoin grant funding or some Octane funding or something as a public good in order to. The model itself will be free, so if anyone would like to go and download it from Hugging Face, they're welcome to. But the serving of it costs money, so we will pay for that out of the treasury. And if I can get that grant proposal opposed, and that's just the type of thing that the taxes go for, right? It's education focused, and that's what you mean with if you're joining our community. That's what you're aligned with.
Nice.
I won't.
I'm sitting here looking through them now.
I won't say who, but we had an EV Maverick in the White House last week, talking to
Heyo.
the Economic Council. So this
Love it.
This was an original NFT holder too. This wasn't somebody that bought one. So yeah, it's a pretty incredible group, and God knows the number of lurkers that got, because they're not, there's 1,324 of them that were doled out. And, not everybody's public as to who has them. I've met some people at conferences that have said, JT, hey, dude, I'm a holder.
You have no idea. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's always
so
fun.
Cool.
We don't usually spend as long as we have on this podcast shilling our backs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're not getting mine. None of them. I love it. Well, listen, Brad, we won't keep you.
Yeah,
Congrats
again,
on
guys.
TestNet, and hope to get you back on in the near future. Maybe in 52 weeks, if we don't, then we can sit down and do the math again.
We'll look you for a 156. It's okay.
What a gem. Well, thanks again so much, man. You have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, likewise, guys. Take it easy.
Bye-bye. All right. Good stuff. Brad from MegaETH. So glad that you could drop by and hang out with us. Let's see. Well, I think it's about that time, friends. Weekly Dudes live stream is all about showcasing the best of the week from the eFinance daily general discussion on our Ethereum. This is a read-along reaction series. And if you want to follow along, head to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by Hani Abu. Big thanks to Tricky Troll for capturing and curating each day's Doots. And the A word for curating this most beloved weekly list. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on a million different links right now. We even have all of our links in one easy to find location here at dailydoots.com/podcast. And if you want to mint this episode, we'll have it up on pods.media/EV Mavericks in a few hours. And as always, if you know somebody that wants a piece of this action, let's send them my way. All right, let's do it. Here we go. As always, I never read these before they get posted. And looks like we are ready to rock and roll. March 28th, Grant Hummer from Etherealize. At least Grant will join us. April 4th, Chris and Jordan from Summer.fi. April 11th, Brahm Alawalia, rescheduled. He's coming on April 11th from Lumina Wealth. Always love talking to him. And April 18th, Tobias Schreier from Grow the Pie. Grow the Pie, a very active contributor on Reddit these days. So really good to have somebody from Grow the Pie hanging out with us on April 18th. All right, here we go. Looks like
I wouldn't be surprised if Grant has to reschedule, but we need to follow up with them and confirm that he's still gonna try and make him the 28th, or if Danny would like to jump in instead, or whatever. But
yeah,
I really would like to have Etherealize on. We've got a lot to contribute to each other here.
Well, and they got, you know what? We're just one more outlet. They got to spread their gospel to people, and we're the people. So I would hope they'd make.
Well, no, I'm not trying to make this a one-way valve.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out how our community can contribute to their mission.
Yeah, right on. That's fair. Definitely, I agree. All right, morning roundup. Frank the Tank chimes in. Ethereum $10.9 gives us a price of $32.60. That can't be right. Did we pump? I don't think so. I don't even think it's $23.60. What year is this? Now the ratio looks right, 0.02356. I don't even want to open up CoinGecko because I'll probably be.
It's just bloody. Don't bother.
Is it really? Is it below? What? Nah, don't tell me. I don't care.
Not two.
All right, weekly. Here we go. Not two. All right, that feels better. Weekly haiku courtesy of JS Tears. The address unique Ethereum machine tweak. The DeFi boutique. And there you have it. JS Tears with your weekly haiku. How does he do it? Stats with Dr. ETH. I always like to come down to the ETF flow. Out 71.8 million over the last 3 days. And just on the last recorded day, down 11.7 million. Looks like the ETFs are kind of bleeding out. BlackRock leading the charge. This is all time. Looks like over the last 3 days. BlackRock leading the charge at negative 53.1. And Grayscale, negative 17. And then there's another Grayscale. I'm not sure what the difference is here. That's up 2.9. This too shall pass. Our ship post of the week comes to us by user Gant G. I think it's Grand G, I thought. Let me look up Gan G. Okay. Duder number 1. Green Day wasn't enough. What we really need is 30 seconds to Mars, which is 10K. I love it. Got to have that ship post today. You got to start out with saving the best for first. So good on you. All right, Walking Dead is bullish once again. Let's look up Walking Dead's Doot score is a Duder 26. Okay, this morning I became bullish again, but now I'm ultra bullish again. Yesterday's daily and today's daily are absolute gold. That's the quality I come here for. Thank you, everyone here. Pure DOS, blobs, based and native rollups, Vitalik's value accrual plan for ETH. It's all going to make ETH the hottest and most sexy asset ever. Ethereum's new leadership, Etherealize, mass RWA, real world asset tokenization, mass worldwide stablecoin adoption, continued amazing updates with an amazing track record, all the institutions building on Ethereum. Years ago, I could keep track of what's happening on Ethereum, but it has gotten so big, I simply can't do that anymore. That's why you need EthereumAdoption.com. Everything points to this being the most amazing investment opportunity of our lifetime. We just need to wait a little while longer, and the many plans, ideas, and dreams will be accomplished. So if you open up EthereumAdoption.com, is this a Hani Abu contribution to the world? It's got to be somewhere.
Yes, it is.
I'm like, yeah, this looks very familiar. Yeah, so Hani Abu made this site. It's so great. It shows you what's all in development. It shows you all the network activity, all the different things going on. This is just this is just in the last few weeks. If you go back to the beginning of the year, there's been like 15 things that are on the list that you can point to as being certified adoption. It's incredible. It's so cool. Ever somebody to come through the daily like Walking Dead and realize that the Ethereum daily discussion on Reddit is providing people free of charge all the information you could ever hope for. If you want to not lose your mind on crypto Twitter.
All the Twitter toxicity, yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible. We need more of it. More people on there. All right, very good, very good. Let me X out one of these videos here. Very good. Nick Badlands brings a nice hit of hope. Nick Badlands is a Duder number 11. I just wanted to spread some hopium. It's what keeps me sleeping soundly, watching my ETH underperform and social media kick it constantly. Just a reminder of the fundamentals that got me into this in the first place. Since Satoshi published the white paper that laid out Bitcoin, there have really only been 3 truly original types of technologies launched: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the tokens or apps built on either of the above. With Bitcoin, it proved a decentralized cryptocurrency running on a blockchain was possible. With Ethereum, it proved using a blockchain and cryptocurrency to run applications was possible. All right, the blockchain trilemma, a phrase first coined by Vitalik, lays out that basically the 3 difficult parts to achieve with a blockchain are security, scalability, and decentralization. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only blockchains that prioritize being in the most perfect place possible with the current blockchain development. Everything else is just a copy of one of these 3 types of cryptos, and they all sacrifice one of the 3 core trilemma tenets to try to differentiate themselves. These things are important, and at some point, these other projects will probably get found out at some stage if they grow. There's the famous quote, markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, unquote. I'm happy holding my ETH. One day the markets will no longer be irrational. Well, at least to some extent, but I'm pretty sure the larger world will wake up to what is possible on ETH and why it matters to build things with either Bitcoin or Ethereum rather than the millions of copies. I think we are seeing that already with the US and other governments looking at Bitcoin seriously. We have pretty much all the large finance institutions looking at ETH and plenty of large corporations too. We just need the price to catch up. Have faith in the long term, people. Yes, well said, Nick Badlands. That quote, markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Can you tell me who made that quote? Put it in the comments somewhere. You could post it in the chat. Do what?
I think that was Buffett.
I think you might be
Could
right.
be wrong.
Could be wrong. Could be right. I'm pretty sure it was not Mahatma Gandhi. All right. Lowy VR discusses the demand for data availability, and user shit shot dead delivers extra details. Oh, these usernames. Lowy VR is a duder number 3, a relative youngster on the dudes list, and shit shot dead is a duder number 8 for this week. Lowy writes, just listen to the latest Milk Road Show podcast on data availability and how blob space demand is set to outgrow block space demand. Their thesis: apps are launching their own chains. Eventually, there will be thousands or even millions. High-quality, decentralized data availability is hard to organize, leading to increased outsourcing. Right now, the two major players on Ethereum are Ethereum and Celestia. Looking at growthepie.xyz, it seems Celestia handles more data at lower cost than Ethereum, whose blob space is currently almost entirely filled by Base. Ethereum's blob space will improve with Pectra and PeerDOS, but can it scale fast enough to compete with other DA providers? Any misconceptions here? Would love to hear your thoughts. How do you see Ethereum competing in the DA market? And if you look at the data availability on growthepie.xyz, you can see the different charts posted here. Celestia versus Ethereum blobs. Good. All right. Shit Shot Dead replies, Celestia current throughput is 1.33 megabytes per second, while Ethereum is 0.064 megabytes per second. Ethereum will need to scale blobs by 20x current value to catch up to Celestia in throughput, so about 60 blobs target per block. It doesn't sound too far-fetched to me. Pectra will allow us to scale to 0.128 megabytes per block. Fusaka may allow us to reach at least 0.256 to 0.64 megabytes per second. Improvements to Gossip Sub is said to be able to double that again. So we may even reach Celestia's throughput in 1 year. Celestia blob space is filled by an L2 called Eclipse, which has a very small TVL and is an SVM. So it shows that it's not really that popular yet. I think alt DA markets will pop up, but it isn't a very lucrative market if that's the only thing they do. If Ethereum is able to significantly improve throughput, it's possible that alternate DAs will not be able to pop up due to the low revenue that it generates. Additionally, if the community can push for based or native rollups, it is possible that Ethereum's DA will win in the long run. We just need to focus to be the most secure and most decentralized settlement layer, allowing companies to have peace of mind to use our data availability and our network. After that, the rest is history.
Yeah, I wish we had a stat on what the EigenDA throughput is in that post, because he talked about Celestia and blobs, right? MegaETH's running on EigenDA, they said. So I'm just curious for anyone that might know what the comparison is between Celestia and EigenDA. I know they work very differently. So every node on Celestia has the full copy of the data, whereas the nodes on EigenDA are using something called data erasure, which basically means you can hold some like a square root of n of the amount of data and still reconstruct the whole thing if nodes go missing, which allows us to scale the number of nodes on EigenDA to be more decentralized. But Celestia has a system whereby each of the nodes is more trusted, basically. because they have to respond to challenges that prove they have the whole data set. So I wonder how much the overhead of those challenges are in terms of the nodes and how much that limits the throughput of the Celestia DA system compared to any overhead from the EigenDA approach. But I haven't seen a head-to-head comparison of the throughput of them in the way that he's describing here.
Thank you.
Treebeard says EigenDA has significantly higher throughput than Celestia. There's a chart that I've seen 1 sec, so hopefully it'll pull something up for us.
Yeah, and Treebeard, if you want to throw it up in the podcast channel chat, it'll show up on the stream.
We'll revisit it if he comes up with the link. I'll make sure it's in the Dudes podcast. We can pull it up.
Yeah, right on. Very good. All right, user Grow the Pie sets the record straight about L2 fees. growthepie.xyz is the website, and they are very active in our daily thread. Thank you, Grow the Pie. About L2 fees, correcting some misinformation that I think has spread from other platforms. Yeah, color me shocked. Misinformation. Base pulled roughly $2.5 million in fees last month and paid Ethereum less than $11,000. Optimism is making roughly $321 in L2 fees for every dollar it pays to ETH. L2s are insanely profitable, but ETH barely sees any of its value. Okay, here's the correction. Last month, Base paid over $300,000 to Ethereum, not $11,000. Considering that the month previous they paid over $1.6 million, it seems even more misleading. This is not to say that Base doesn't make a healthy, quote, on-chain, unquote, profit with a 92.6% margin in the past 6 months. This cannot be denied. This, however, does not include off-chain costs, which are significant. With Pectra doubling the target for blobs, we could charge 25% less per blob and still make 50% more revenue per blob. In reality, demand will determine the price per blob, but there seems to be no shortage of that. There you go. User Bear10 educates us on the base rollups and then follows up. You know what I didn't do? I didn't say the Doot score for Grow the Pie. Grow the Pie this week is at 26. I think the Grow the Pie intern, whoever's running this channel, or this Reddit handle, they earned, I think, 5 or 4 Doots this last week. They were on Tricky's list quite a bit because they do a great job of posting top level stuff that's very meaty in nature is the word of the day I'm going to use. Meaty. All right. MEATY. There you go. Word of the day. All right. Bear 10 educates us on base rollups and then follows up. Bear 10 is a duder number 35. I came to the conclusion that based rollups fix every issue that Ethereum currently has. I'm a huge supporter of based rollups, and the introduction of based rollups will be a game changer. Here's how it works. Rollups won't do sequencing anymore. Validators will sequence. The result? L2s are 100% Ethereum infrastructure. Rollups receive decentralized sequencers, more stability, and unifying user experience between base rollups will be easier. Also, all economic activity on the L2 will be exactly the same as economic activity on L1. Literally no difference. As validators and sequencers can harvest the MEV, and all fees get burned, not just 20%. Whoa. The narrative fixes. Here we go. Rollups are extractive-based rollups. Okay. Rollups are extractive. Based rollups are not. Rollups are centralized. Based rollups are not. Rollups can switch data availability. Based rollups cannot. Economic activity stays on Ethereum and helps with the store of value narrative. Here's the cons. L2 projects have less money. Here's the answer. Nope. They still have a token and can make billions with a governance token. Optimism is working on implementing this. One rollup implements this, and naturally the market pressure will cause others to do the same. More stable L2s. L2s will never go down anymore. Then there is only one last issue left, mutability. If we make the smart contracts immutable, then rollups truly become Ethereum and offer one-to-one the same safety guarantees. That's the last step, though. I'm rooting for based rollups, and I will support them as much as possible. Based rollups will win as soon as they are introduced. Also, having a few hundred satellite states with their unique sequencers and data layers additionally to based rollups won't hurt anyone. Unifying based rollups, making them seamless, would be much easier than to somehow achieve this with different sequencer tech. By the way, wouldn't that fix also the issue of needing proofs, as slashing mechanisms for those sequencing validators could be extended to L2 transactions? What am I missing? And if he follows up with himself, based rollups let Ethereum validators do the sequencing. That functionality should be natively integrated into the core protocol. So any rollup can decide to let Ethereum validators do the sequencing services. This would require no infrastructure from them except keeping the chain history. So spinning up a rollup would be even easier and less risky. Another advantage of Ethereum validators doing the sequencing: more profit for stakers on top of higher burn for Ethereum, which equals more attractive to stake higher token price and higher security. It all feeds into itself and would be a closed system with no holes spilling value and security. Based native rollups. We need that functionality. And the rollups that choose to keep their sequencer on purpose will automatically be less ETH aligned. We do not have based rollups in that sense yet that Ethereum validators do the sequencing. It would make L2s as stable as L1 and as censorship resistant as L1 because ETH validators would do all the sequencing. And we should also implement a slashing mechanism so that L2s would be one-to-one as safe as the layer 1. Well, we would need to make the rollup contracts immutable, of course. Another thing that would be great is that then L2s are not subsidized and pay fully for the cost of safety. L2s need to be Ethereum, and this is how we can do it. Wow. That was a banger, huh? Good job. All right. Tricky Troll. Tricky Troll got nominated for the weekly by the A word. Tricky Troll is a duder, number 35 this week. I was closing out tabs. Just building off of user Bearton's amazing post on it. Here we go. Based rollups from yesterday. What is the game theory to get L2s to actually upgrade to based rollups? Base aren't going to want to give up their income from sequencing. What's in it for them aside from a big loss of revenue? I'm not wholly convinced that L2 users care enough to migrate from an L2 like Base to a base rollup on a decentralization and ideals alone. For example, the vast majority of people use Google Chrome despite the fact that it is a privacy nightmare, and giving away their own user data for free is against their own interests in most cases. Yeah, it's very well said. User Harog. Woo! User Harog replies. Harog is a heavy hitter on our rich list. A duder 184 for the week. I didn't even go over the leaderboard. I need to do that before we close out the show. Harog says, in my view, there is no reason for anyone to upgrade to based rollups, at least at the moment. There are still quite a bit of hurdles to overcome until they are better than current rollups. Your question regarding income from sequencing is only half valid. Sequencing fees can be split into base fee and priority fee, as most rollups use EIP 1559. Even when they upgrade to based, the rollup creators should be able to decide what happens with the base fee. They are only giving the control away over the priority fee part. If we look at the ratio on Ethereum mainnet, it was around 80 to 90% base fee and 10 to 20% priority fee for a very long time. I am not convinced that this exact ratio would hold on a rollup as well. But at least it gives an indication that the rollup creator might be able to keep a substantial part of the income. An additional advantage for the rollup creator is that they are able to hand over part of their job to other actors, which lowers their operation cost and reduces their liabilities from a regulatory standpoint. The disadvantage for the user at the moment is that based rollups have to keep the 12-second time slot of Ethereum, which results in a worse user experience compared to other rollups. At the moment, normal rollups do not extract MEV directly and do not allow sandwiching. In based rollups, toxic MEV is an issue again. Pre-confirmations and MEV protection might solve some or most of the issues there. What based rollups can give the user in the future is seamless interoperability between different based rollups. This will allow more efficient trade execution and bring the different rollups closer together. Permissionless sequencing, which in my understanding comes with based rollups, will also give us pretty much real-time censorship resistance. There are reasons to think that based rollups might become a superior way of running rollups. We are just not there yet. At the moment, there are pretty much zero reasons for a rollup to become based, though. I can't see a future where, air quote, normal rollups will have to choose if they want to become based or even native based for the better security guarantees and native interoperability it brings, or if they turn into L2s with Alt-DA for the cheaper execution prices and scalability they can get there. There might be no middle ground anymore. Specific for the case of base, I have not seen yet any indication of them doing anything malicious or trying to defect from their goals of being a rollup. They are part of a publicly traded company and for sure do not do things out of the goodness of their heart. At the moment, their goals still align very much with Ethereum's goals, even though they are slower than competitors in making next steps regarding security. If they want to become a credibly neutral layer for other institutions to build on Base, then I do not see another way than for them to become a based or even native-based rollup. If their goal is to just bring DeFi to Coinbase users, then their setup is good enough, and there might be no reason to turn it into a based rollup. We will see which niche they will try to occupy in the future. And that is a massive reply by user Harog to Tricky Troll and ultimately Bear 10. Yeah,
definitely some pros and cons in there, right?
God, he lays it out.
Some healthy discourse, right? In the Dudes podcast, Treebeard did drop a Twitter link, so if you pull that up, we'll show.
Okay, very good. Let's do that real quick. All right.
Call back to our previous thing. So we were looking for the delta between Celestia, which apparently ETH needs to become 60 times faster in order to catch up with Celestia, and EigenDA, which is data availability available on Ethereum today.
And what? I'm sorry. What am I picking up? What am I pulling up?
There's a tweet from Treebeard just above from Bread Guy Status.
Bread Guy Status. Gotcha. Okay, Bread says it's actually more scaling pragmatism than pure cost savings, but
there's a pure chart, so I don't know what you're looking at. No, there it is. Yep, right. That one. Click it.
There it is.
All right. So, yes, Ethereum has the numbers here don't perfectly align with the weekly Duded post, right? Because this looks like Ethereum. Well, this includes the L1 and the DA, but okay, throughput of Ethereum in data is maybe 4 times less than Celestia. According to this chart, the other post said we need to do 60x. But even if you grant a 15x on top of Celestia's current thing, that would push it to maybe 5 megabits a second. I don't remember what the other post said. That still says EigenDA is at least 3 times faster, but here it says it's over 10x faster, right? 30x faster. So, yeah, I don't think we have a throughput problem for Ethereum right now.
Average blob count per block.
Yeah, this is just saying our blobs being purchased at the EIP 1x5 rate, right?
Look at that. Boing.
Yeah, well, sure, but now you're talking about call data on MegaETH, which isn't what they're writing back to the EigenDA system, right?
Gotcha.
So yes, the throughput on MegaETH is something stupid. We say it was 2 giga gas or something. Yeah. So how much call data and execution throughput can you get on giga gas. It's a lot. For perspective, like we have 21 million gas or something is the what's the current block size in gas? Anyone know offhand? It's changed recently because we increased to like 20%.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, James Carnley's in the crowd today. Good to see you, friend. All right. We're getting down the
It was
list.
around 21. Now it's around 30. So 32 million gas units per block. So the difference between million and billion is quite a lot.
I have to get a drink because I see who's next. Logri the Bard. Logri the Bard on the Weekly Doots show. We got 3 more left and we got a banger. Here we
You
go.
do not have to read much on this one. That's it.
I don't need you're just people can redirect.
Yeah. It was just an announcement saying my next gen tokens post is out.
Oh, okay. Well, was this the one that you wrote last week that I read? The next gen tokenomics?
You have read sections of this over the past like 2.5 months.
Okay.
So it's a big thing.
All right.
Feel free to retweet it, but
at Logri the Bard, I'm going to repost right now, tokenomicsexplained.com, and he's got his blog post on next gen tokens. Yeah, because I remember reading a piece of this. This was kind of like the delta neutral. It was like, I remember it was like was this part of the post that had to deal with doing long and short positions and not having to pay taxes?
That's the delta neutral section, but that's one section of the longer post, right?
Gotcha.
So I've got things on yield bearing indices in there, and I've got things on insurance tokens in there that you've read. So you've got like 6 or 7 doots rolled up into narrative and woven together and edited, polished, and all that, right?
Very good. Yeah, check that out. Tokenomicsexplained.com/next gen tokens. And if you follow at Logri the Bard, he's got it right there on his Twitter feed, posted on March 17th. And you can give that a like and a retweet as well. You got to put some shoes on the babies. I know you give it away. Let's see here. Moving on down, 2 left for the day. Greg Foley. That just sounds like a fake username, but it's a real name. Let's see. Greg Foley is, if I hit view on Reddit, here we go. Sorry, I'm getting a little punch drunk. Oh, the view on Reddit didn't work. Hyperlinks to the Dudes podcast. So I can't see his score. Well, here's user Greg Foley. Let's see if I can get a score this way. Yeah. All right, duder number 8 this week. Asks about a risk of centralized stable coins, and user Harog covers the nuances of hard forks. Okay, do centralized stable coins destroy Ethereum's decentralization? For example, Circle has a bug that allows massive minting, and the coins get traded before they can get frozen, and proposes a fork to undo the exploit. You have to follow their fork if you want your USDC, or just don't want most of the major protocols to collapse due to their bad debt. Does this give Circle or the US government control over Ethereum?
This is an old conversation.
This-
We were talking about this 5 years ago, man.
Yeah. This isn't something I hear Vitalik or other researchers talking about. So I think I may be missing something.
He's written about it on his blog.
Yeah, he's written about it.
Vitalik has explicitly talked about this, especially came up more recently with Eigenlayer, saying like don't overload Ethereum consensus, right? And the risks of like if a nation state decided that that they were going to launch their central bank digital currency, and then you had to follow that fork of it or something, right? He has definitely talked about this on his research blog. But even more generally than that, what if Tether goes to one fork, Circle goes to another fork, Binance goes to the Tether fork, Coinbase goes to the Circle fork? What happens in DeFi? Oh dear God, right? The calamity, right?
User Hara replies, a few points to consider. Doing a hard fork is hard. They would have to align a lot of people for this to succeed. First of all, they would need to have at least some core devs ready to make new releases. Then they would have to convince many validators to update them, and many of them are bigger than the $3 billion in this example. Comparing the Bybit hack of 1.5 billion, where no one is even considering doing anything like that, I don't even think 3 billion is a big enough price. Even if they manage to coordinate, the attacker would know exactly which of their wallets are targeted. The hacker will just move their ETH to another wallet right before the hard fork, and then they, Circle, would have to coordinate another fork. This makes it impossible to move the funds back into the proper wallets. So forking the ETH back into the victim's wallet is actually pretty much impossible. Rolling the chain back to a time before the hack will cost more than could reasonably be stolen from Circle, as all the validators attesting to the new rolled back chain would get slashed for their ETH. If more than 1/3 would go to the forked chain, they would lose all their staked ETH. The newly forked chain could give amnesty to the validators, but they would still lose all their staked ETH on the original chain. Pretty big hurdle for achieving this. That's why rollbacks have never been done on Ethereum and are now, with proof of stake, pretty much impossible. Tim Byko has more on this, and he's got an xcancel.com link to Tim's Twitter account. Proof of work chains can relatively easy do rollbacks, and Bitcoin has done so at least 2 times in its lifetime. Oh God, don't tell them that. Proof of stake chains without slashing, almost all the ones outside of Ethereum, can also easily roll back. The only way to prevent this is for Circle to lock down their smart contracts as much as possible and have strict access control to the upgradable parts. Continuous monitoring will help in detecting irregularities before they have an effect on chain. Once they are hacked and the funds are in ETH, there's pretty much nothing they can do. From the Ethereum side, we have to make sure that no single entity has control over a large part of the ecosystem. We need multiple smaller stablecoin providers, centralized and decentralized ones. We need multiple LST and LRT providers. That is why the community rebelled against the plan of Lido and Steth becoming the new ETH. We need multiples of everything, or in other words, we need diversity, so that any breach of any protocol will at most impact only a small subset of the network. That is what resilience means. Danny Ryan has a presentation about this from DevConnect in Istanbul. There is also a blog post from around that time. I cannot find the blog post at the moment, but here's the video, and he posts the link. Edit. Clarify the end sentence in the second paragraph and add a nuance in paragraph 3. So there you go, another reply from Harag. And then Harag got the last dude of the week. Harag is like such a freaking animal. Amazing. Yo, they turned my lights off in here.
Animal and a good friend.
Somebody on the other side of the office turned the lights off, but that's okay. I'm an ugly mug anyway. User Harag comments on Coinbase's staking transparency report by user ETH2353 makes a good point about why it's particularly important that Coinbase's stake share doesn't grow. All right, Coinbase, according to Harag, released a staking transparency report today. Let's open up this link, shall we? Ethereum Validator Performance Report. Uptime, participation time. Oh, look at that. Looks like 99.52. That's pretty much on the money. Our validators operate in Japan, Singapore, Ireland. I'm going to Ireland this year. Germany and Hong Kong. Okay, good. Until now, it was unknown how many validators Coinbase runs. Hildabi, famous for his Dune dashboards, managed to track down about 86,000 validators. 8%? 8% of all validators operate under Coinbase. Good God, man.
How dare you?
Woo! It was clear that not all were found. Some estimated that Coinbase runs up to 21%. 21% of the 1.05 million validators on Ethereum. That's shocking, man. Jesus. In their transparency report, Coinbase says they run 120,000 validators, which is 11.4% of all validators on the network. They would never lie to us, would they? I'm very happy about this low number. That's low. I always assume more of a worst case scenario that they ran 20 to 25% of all validators already. And the staking ETFs will further add to that. Dude, I'm not happy that they're running 11% of all the validators. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. Shit.
Well, okay, it's 11% now, but imagine that we launch staking ETFs, right?
Okay,
And
fair, but
then
then
Coinbase
yeah,
is the custodian
right.
for the staking ETFs.
Right.
So then just the CB ETH would be 11%, but then all the staked ETF ETH would also be held by them effectively as a custodian. They'd be run the validators, they'd be making the fork choice, right? So the problem gets quickly, much worse than that. Throw another 100 billion,
God damn.
at the problem in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I hope they go with
I don't know
Kraken or
that the staking
Gemini or
ETFs give a shit about diversified, parties as much as we do, right?
I would
They're just gonna
hope
be
they
like, look,
did.
everyone. No, they don't. Right? Like no one at Van Eck or whatever actually cares about anything other than the SEC approval and the yield, right?
Yeah, but if
So
they're
to them,
supposed to be doing
the
stuff on
idea
behalf of their customers, they should.
their customers want the ETH price to go up, sure, but like they don't have the technical understanding. It just maybe Bitwise has some amount of care, but like it's you'd want people to go and use some amount of Kraken, right, for their staking ETF and some amount of a diversified set of participants, including maybe Lido or Rocket Pool or whatever, right? But they don't want the technical complexity. They just want SEC approval, and the more complicated the proposal to the SEC, the more difficult that approval process is, which is why every financial innovation is the minimum possible change from the previous one, right? And the minimum possible change is, look, we're already doing all of the custodian with Coinbase because it's the most above board of the centralized exchanges available, and it's centered in the US, right? So we're already doing all of the custodial efforts with Coinbase. We're just going to have them run the validators like they already do for CBETH. It's already been successful. No changes to look at here, right? So
Yeah.
just from the principle of minimum change, nothing to see here. Please approve us. They're going to be giving Coinbase a lot more ETH for validators for
Yeah.
that share that you'll go up.
Yeah. I don't doubt it. It's way worse than I thought. Okay. They run Lighthouse 20%, Prism 80%, together with Geth at 36% and Nethermind at 64%. At least those numbers are spread out a little bit. Wait, I don't get this. How does that add up to 100%? What am I not reading here? 20%
20 and 80 is 100%.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
36 and 64 are 100%. Remember,
Idiot.
this is
Gotcha.
execution versus consensus.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Not an excellent client diversity, but much better than they had a year ago when it was 100% Geth. Okay, now I see the difference. Overall, I see it as a positive development that they released such a report, especially because the unknown number of Coinbase validators was always a bit of an issue when discussing centralization risks.
Yeah, we certainly would hope that they're going to use DVT eventually to run multiple, 3 at least consensus and execution clients, their validators. So if there's a fault, it's not as though Geth would win in a majority answer sense. So the answer is going to become more complicated than just a pie chart. It's going to be a pie chart of every section of that could have its own pie chart.
Yeah, exactly.
Hence,
yeah.
But the result would be if there's a bug in a minority client, they wouldn't even submit the answer from the minority client. They would submit the answer from the majority of the clients that are running.
And then
DVT.
Yeah. Go ahead. Is that it?
No, that's how DVT works, right?
That's how it works.
Run multiple validators that are backing basically multiple clients that are running backing each of the validator slots.
Okay. And then user ETH2353 is a Duder33 this week. They replied, "Hey, thanks for sharing. This transparency is nice to see, finally. For example, Lido's been doing this kind of thing for years, but better late than never. Coinbase's size is still about 10x what I'd personally like the biggest single staking entities to be. And with staking ETFs, I am still wary of them growing further. Considering they, Coinbase and Circle, are also a stablecoin issuer, I think it's a bit dangerous for them to have a lot of power over Ethereum's consensus layer. In case of a potential future stablecoin related fork, they could choose the fork that benefits the stablecoin instead of a more neutral fork." Okay, and then continues on, "I'm glad to see it's less than we expected, but it hasn't changed my own view too much. Ethereum decentralization is not terrible at the moment, but since the Beacon chain launched, it has basically only gotten worse. From a comment I made last month, 25 staking service providers today run 50% of the network's validators. So even today, only 25 companies could decide to increase the gas limit if they wanted to, potentially increasing it to a value where home stakers are unable to keep up. Anyway, good news for today. I hope they continue doing these on a regular basis. But the battle for a decentralized Ethereum is far from over. Somebody in the chat tell me how much Coinbase gets to keep when they are staking your ETH, because I think they are like the most expensive, and they might be the most expensive in the United States. I don't know. What is Coinbase's take when they stake your ETH? Is it like, I'm serious. I think it might be like 15% of your staking yield. And then like Gemini, I don't know, versus Kraken. It'd be interesting to see what those numbers are. All right. Well, that takes us to the end of another week's show. Don't forget that next week. Oh, I never went over our leaderboard for the week. What an idiot. Here's your leaderboard for this week. dailydoots.com. Set one less at 106. 696 ETH at 111. Crypto currency at 116. Ethical trade at 118. Hani Abu at 120. Tricky Troll at 146. Benito 2030 climbing up at 167. Harog 184. Logri the Bard at 185. Super Fizz at 219. That's your top 10 of the week. Don't forget that we've got all kinds of dates and scheduled events that you can go look at dailydoots.com. You can go look at the old daily threads that are listed there. It'll even show you how many comments each had. We have 1,176 duders that have made the daily doots at least one time. Check out all of our links at dailydoots.com/podcast. Thanks so much for subscribing, smashing the bells around here. And if you want to stick around on Discord after the live stream, we continue the party in the hotel lobby on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube or X or Twitch or LinkedIn. All right. Hi, Mom. So on behalf of eFinance Daily, general discussion on our Ethereum and the EV Mavericks DAO, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.